Hello everybody and welcome back. Good to talk to all of you again on this fabulous Tuesday, and today we are going to do two things, I think. One, we're going to look at this Charles Martel replay from the Sneaky Snake, and we're also going to talk about patch 0.6.11, and that's the patch that's hitting tomorrow with supposedly all those fancy clan features, right? And well, let's just say that I'm already not happy with that particular incoming patch. And I'm not happy with the fact that clan sizes are still going to be incredibly limited. Back when we first got clans put into the game, we paid doubloons and we were given 30 slots, and that's it. And back then, some of us raised the concern that doesn't this feel like a bit of a cash grab, that, we're being forced to create more and more subclans in order to have a single bigger clan, right? Because in World of Tanks, you spend the same amount essentially in gold and you get 100 slots. In World of Warships, we're getting 30. So to get the same effect, you've got to essentially create 4 clans, right? And we were told that, it's not a cash grab because right now, due to technical limitations, you can only have 30. And as things, evolve and get better, more can be done. So now here we go. We've got the official implementation. And in order to get the same effect as a World of Tanks clan, to have 100 slots, you've basically got to create 2 clans. And when I say create 2 clans, it means you've got to create 2 clans and then level them up or upgrade them up to the maximum possible thing, which is going to cost, from what I can tell, 120,000 oil. And judging from the sort of comparison in terms of cost of oil to all the other upgrades, it tells me that this 120,000 oil is not going to be an easy thing to obtain. And so basically, if you want to have the same, let's say, 100 slot clan, you've got to create still at least a minimum of 3 clans. So how is this not a cash grab, Wargaming? Explain it to me. I mean, you told us initially that, oh, it's not a cash grab because it's technical reasons, it's limited to 30, and now the thing's officially being implemented, and it's basically 30, unless you want to spend a ton of time trying to accumulate oil. And it doesn't seem like it's an easy thing to accumulate, since all the other upgrades are significantly cheaper. And 120,000 is gonna be quite a lot, from all the indications that you have. And even then, your clan size is only going to be 50. I find this incredibly scummy. I find this an incredibly scummy thing to do. Because you promised us back in the day that, the 30 limitation is because of technical reasons and improvements will be made. And basically right now, unless you want to commit a ton of time trying to expand only by 10 slots, you're going to be stuck with that same 30. Which basically means if people want to get a whole bunch of people together, they're going to continue to have to pay additional doubloons in order to get additional slots. Not really a happy camper at all with what I saw there. I mean, sure, the other things are nice little features, but man, I can't even come up with all the words right now for how annoyed I am with the way they've gone about this. It is just scummy. It is cheap. Yeah, it's just not a good implementation at all. Anyways, so that's the one thing that's already really pissed me off about patch 0.6.11. And I've told them that this was not going to be an acceptable thing. I've said, hey, look, we should have the same sort of size as a World of Tanks clan if we're spending the same amount of money. If we're putting in this much, we should get it. Never mind the fact that, 2 years after World of Warships is officially released, we still don't have gold unification. And I'm just really pissed about this. No, not the gold unification thing, the whole clan size thing. I'm just really, really pissed about this. Today was one of those days I woke up in the morning, we're in a pretty good mood, because, woke up energetic and everything, and I was like, yep, I'm gonna go make a video. Spend 4 minutes looking at the patch notes, and just went, I want to just go back to bed right now. But I still have to voice my objection because this is just unacceptable. It just feels like a really, really cheap thing to do. Really petty, really cheap, and it just feels like a blatant cash grab. And that's what pisses me off so much, because a game like this, really, you play because of that social element. You get to play with people you know, playing from the same clan, and you're being prevented from really doing that because the system in the game just says, aha, no, you guys can't all be in the same clan together. Just really not happy with this. And aside from, of course, that change, the other thing, of course, we're going to have is additional effectiveness of little DDs with their pew-pew guns. Because IFHE is going to now affect them less in terms of their fire chance. So that's going to be fun. More damage from their shells against certain ships with certain thickness of armor. But then you're also going to get set on fire a whole bunch more. I mean, totally, we needed more of this in the game, right? We just needed more fire, more HE spam. We just needed more of the things that absolutely are annoying in the game. Hooray! There are days where I just can't even. So, okay, moving away from that, let's look at this battle from the Sneaky Snake, playing the Charles Martel. And already at this point in the time, 90,000 damage has been accumulated. And of course, this is, the damage that he's been accumulating is the very valuable kinds of damage, because if you remember earlier, he was able to use his armor piercing effectively and killed off 2 cruisers. And of course, killing cruisers of that tier is worth more than, let's say, killing battleships of the exact same tier, right? So the damage, there's that value aspect of damage. Like, one could get, let's say, 100,000, but if you get all the damage off of battleships, then the damage isn't as valuable versus, let's say, you did the same 100,000 damage, but you only killed cruisers and destroyers. Much more valuable damage there. So, continuing to spam some HE at that Missouri over there. Missouri is trying to take some cover, but the terrain there doesn't offer that much protection yet. So shells are going to continue to be able to get over there and do some additional damage for Sneaky Snake. One thing about playing cruisers is one does have to be very, very aware of where the enemy is. You have to be aware of your own map positioning, and you also have to know when to switch ammo types. So if you're using HE in a situation like that, enemy Charles Martel would survive. Good AP salvo, and you get your double citadel, and you send them back to port. Saint Louis over there, notice a little bit more angled, so armor piercing not likely to do all that much against them. So immediate switch to HE and continue firing from there and get damage that way. So cruiser players, one has to constantly evaluate which ammo type you should be using when. Generally speaking, rule of thumb is if you get something that's giving you a little bit more of a broadside, you of course want to be using armor piercing. If you are running into things that are a little bit more angled or presenting bow on profiles, for example, you do want to of course switch over to HE, as you're likely to get better damage that way. All in all, this replay, beginning to end, is a pretty good example of effective ammo type switching as a cruiser player. So if you're a cruiser player and you're like, I'm not really sure when to go from HE to AP or vice versa, pay attention to this replay. It is quite a good guide. Also, you'll notice, for example, right there against the Missouri, Sneaky Snake starts with an AP salvo, but then switches over to HE right away. And he does so because he's looking at the mini-map and he sees that initially that Missouri was in a pretty angled state, so AP likely wasn't going to be as effective. So switched over to HE to get fires and damage, and that's the right thing to do. With the HE salvo loaded, sees a Yugumo pop up, also decides to take a shot at that Yugumo. Lands a few more hits there, gets a bit more damage, and there's the high caliber, so 134,000. Right around this particular point, I do think that Missouri is maybe broadside enough to have chanced an AP salvo, but the Missouri is also heading back behind cover, right? So an HE salvo to try to get a fire is reasonable, although I personally would have gone for AP. Enemy shores over there goes broadside. Why cruisers do that, yeah, I can never really explain, but anyways, goes full broadside and of course eats a citadel. Enemy Yugumo decides to show his face, gets deleted because HP was too low, but anyways, yeah, don't really get these enemy cruiser players in this game. I mean, they're just showing so many side and just making it easy. Why don't I get cruiser players on the enemy team like this when I play? Jeez, that would make my life so much easier. Yeah, I normally get smart cruiser players on the enemy team that make my life kind of annoying, but anyhow. Alright, so, yeah, I mean, getting some more damage there. Enemy CV decides to drop a torpedo. Does actually hit. There's another Citadel hit. There's a lot of Citadel hits in this battle. I mean, Sneaky Snake farms up a ton of Citadel hits. Does almost get wiped out right around there. Very little HP left, 2,800. And he's sitting on 157,000 damage, right? That's quite a bit of damage there. Enemy St. Louis comes out, again, quite broadside, shoots an HE salvo too, doing pretty much nothing. Gets deleted by 2 Citadel hits there, and there is the Kraken. Anyways, speaking of French cruisers, and remember the whole Captain's Academy video I did like a couple days back where I talked about it being essentially like, you know, having a black hole armor, the whole spaced armor thing? Well, someone else tested it as well. You guys should probably know him. I've mentioned his work before, F Nord. He's the one who did the early work on the whole penetration formulas and stuff like that, and he did some testing as well, and he's like, yeah, it seems like that the way that Wargaming has programmed spaced armor in the game is that, you know, if you get penetrated on the outer layer and it doesn't penetrate the inner layer, you basically have a 0 damage zone where nothing happens. And so, you know, if that is fully intentional, yeah, it makes spaced armor a really, really important thing to have in terms of protection. Because with spaced armor, it's, you know, unlike, let's say, even turtleback armor, with spaced armor you either take Citadel damage, so that's full damage, or you take nothing at all. Well, with Turtleback, it's either you take Citadel or you just take penetration damage, right? And so that gives spaced armor some pretty interesting characteristics, shall we say. Gets a little bit lucky there against that enemy Missouri's last salvo. Didn't take a single shell there, but manages to also get enough shells in return to snag that 6th kill. So currently looking good. I mean, high caliber, Kraken, Confederate, tons of damage already. Just doing really, really well. Still has 1,900 HP remaining. And he's going to be able to rack up some more damage still, because the enemy team still has 2 remaining ships. There's a cruiser, and there is an aircraft carrier. Judging by sort of the disparity between the carriers' performances so far, it is probably fair to assume that the enemy carrier is still at full HP. Although the carrier's position currently is still a bit of an unknown. Although had you plotted sort of where the planes were going back the last time, you might have a general indication of position. Okay, so enemy cruiser, don't know why, but all the enemy cruisers in this particular battle seem to really like showing the broadside. Luckily it didn't get deleted there. But again, turning around, you probably figured that maybe right here might be a good time to not show a broadside, maybe try to get into safety behind an island. No. Decides to still show broadside. Sneaky Snake goes, gets triple Citadel, 19,000 damage, and 1 remaining salvo dead. There's kill number 7. Enemy aircraft are now approaching from sort of the G line, around G9 maybe is my guess, and depending again on where you see the returning direction of the aircraft will give you a pretty good indication of where that CV actually is. Now, carrier players can fake out enemy ships by doing the attack and then setting a different waypoint off in completely the wrong direction and sending off aircraft in that direction, making it look like they're returning to the carrier, and then that could fake out the enemy. However, in a situation like this where that's the last carrier left, that carrier is probably just concerned with trying to get as much more damage as possible to, you know, maximize experience. So I don't really think that he's going to be doing anything so fancy. As you can tell from the track of the aircraft heading back, that is most likely where that aircraft carrier is, probably around, my guess, F9, maybe moving towards G9. At this point in time, with that last strike basically not really having any real effect, Sneaky Snake now has a decision to make. He can either track the aircraft back to the carrier to try to get some more damage, or he can head towards the cap circle to try to snag some experience there. I think personally, with the amount of HP he would have had right now, I think personally I would have made a move for cap instead, just, you know, the safer play to guarantee the win. But then again, you know, if the carrier decides to be silly, show himself, whatnot, could always go for it. And of course, the carrier on Sneaky Snake's team decides to go and scout out the enemy carrier, as you can tell, right around F9, G9, somewhere around there. So Sneaky Snake goes from heading towards Cap, which I think he was going to do initially, turns around, and is going to go hunt this Taiho down. This Taiho, at this particular point in the battle, it's pretty much game over for him. No more friends left, and of course the Destroyer on Sneaky Snake's team are both on the Cap. So it's pretty much game over. I might have, if I was playing the Taiho, maybe try to YOLO a little bit harder towards Sneaky Snake and just try to farm up what little damage I can left through secondaries, but hey, that torpedo salvo discouraged the Taiho from turning in some more. So then he's going to show a broadside, and you can see Sneaky Snake goes from the HE to the armor piercing again. And I've seen people still ask me this question like, hey, why do you use AP against carriers? You use AP against carriers because carriers have citadels. And you can get citadel damage, and the more citadels you get, the faster the enemy carrier dies. So instead of worrying about having fires and doing that kind of stuff, you might as well just kill them off faster. Kind of accomplishes the same goal, to be honest. Eliminate the enemy carrier just as quickly as possible. At least that's my personal philosophy, but some people still like using HE more. Not my thing. Anyways, last little bit of damage that Sneaky Snake is farming up here off of this Taiho. His team is going to cap out. So the salvo here is pretty much going to be the last amount of damage he's going to be able to get. So hold up. Shells landing. There we go. And he is going to pick up, I believe, another Citadel hit here as well. Yep. There it is for the final number of about 8,100 something damage. And 34. There we go. And that's the end of this pretty darn impressive battle with the Charles Martel, almost just over 215,000 damage, just under 650,000 credits, 13,403 experience earned, Kraken, Confederate, High Caliber, 20 Citadel hits. Just going to show you how effective that AP is. Not that many fires, but base experience, 3,504. Just a mind-boggling amount of base experience. Also helped by the fact that he does also have 15 plane kills, which is just under half of what his carrier is able to shoot down. So a pretty impressive number there. If you look at the damage there, 136,000 damage with AP alone, right? So not as much HE and fire damage, but really solid amount of AP damage. And that's what you got to do as a cruiser. So you got to see that sort of AP and HE damage combined if you want to be a good, effective cruiser player. Anyways, one final thing to look at, once you take away all the, consumables and all that stuff, still 468,000 credits earned. Anyways, folks, I hope you enjoyed this replay. Take care, have yourselves a good one, and I will talk to all of you again in the next video.